Tonight,
the final whistle has blown. After 16 years of sheer agony, Trinidad and Tobago have made it to the promised land. They will be in Germany 2006.
The epic story of Trinidad and Tobago's rise to the 2006 World Cup.
Dennis Lawrence's header was easily the most important goal in our nation's history.
To the dramatic demise.
You can't have your professional footballers by name, but by action, nothing's professional.
Let's not forget, we barely qualified. We went through the playoffs.
The masterminds behind the plan.
Leo understood that he had all the experience in the world, but he had never experienced a culture like ours before.
TTFA football was Jack Warner, and Jack Warner was TTFA football. We almost synonymous. We talk about football then, talking to Jack Warner.
And our failure to capitalize on 2006.
You can't put a team together and hope to qualify. You have to build. You don't have instant football, Ryan. And until we get that into our heads, that you have to build, groom, grow, we will not achieve success.
Now, on CNC3, 20 years after qualifying for the World Cup.
They've scored the goal that could send them to the promised land.
The USA national team must beat Trinidad and Tobago in order to advance to the World Cup in 1990. A tie or a loss will do them no good, and then Trinidad, in fact, would advance to the World Cup for the first time in their history. Clearly, this is the most important 90 minutes in the history of the players on the U.S. national team.
In many ways, the success of the 2006 World Cup team was built on the pain of a nation in 1989.
Beats the first man. A left-footed shot! Paul Caligiuri has scored a goal, and the USA lead 1-0.
I shed tears in November 19th, 1989. I thought that was probably the best opportunity for me as a fan to see Trinidad and Tobago qualify for a World Cup, and I thought it was cruel. We were cruelly denied.
Ball played in on the bender off one flick and just wide for the USA.
We had lost in 1990, needing only 1 point, which we had in the dressing room, and we lost 1-0 on the field, and that tore me inside.
The USA has realized the dream. They will qualify for the World Cup in 1990.
Following the heartbreak of the 1990 World Cup qualifiers, Jack Warner says he began a reorganization of Trinidad and Tobago football.
And I decided then that I would make another thing again, but it would take me some years because I had to build from the ground up. So I began a lot of youth programs, CONCACAF youth programs, and tournaments, and they were held here. And those tournaments created people like Latapi and Dwight York and these Hutchinson and these guys who then were able to go and defend their country and to play for it. In football, there's no instant success. You have that in coffee and cocoa and chocolate, but you don't have instant football. You have to build from the ground up, and that's what I did at that time.
Suddenly, Trinidad and Tobago had found itself on the cusp of qualifying for the World Cup, 2 playoff matches away from the long-lost dream.
It's not a great ball, but it bounces to Birchall. Oh! Golazo! Thank you very much!
The national team arrived in Bahrain with a 1-1 draw in the first leg. The stakes couldn't be higher for both teams. But Dennis Lawrence, the hero of that second leg, was not even supposed to be on the plane.
Coming down late to the game, I had felt a bit of a tightness in my hamstring, so I was assessed by the medical team. And beyond my knowledge, a decision was made that I wasn't going to be going to Bahrain because the medical team felt that I wouldn't be able to play the game in Bahrain. So I got to the hotel, we packed our bags, and I came down the lift. And as I got to the bottom of the lift, Leo was there. And he said to me, my friend, we need to take a walk. So we walked outside the hotel. We were at the Crown Plaza at the time. And he basically said to me that, look, from the reports he got from the medical team that they don't think I'll be able to make the game in Bahrain. So he needs 21 or 20 players, fit players to play the game. So he was going to leave me behind. He was going to take me to Bahrain, which was a bit of a shock for me. And we had a bit of a discussion about it because I was confident I'd be able to play. And in the end, we got back to the hotel, we got the doctor involved, and Leo then made the brave decision to trust the player, which was himself. And he took my word for it that I'd be fine, and he took me to Bahrain.
He says there was a sense of dissatisfaction among the team after the first leg as the plane travelled to the Middle East. But they were adamant to right the wrongs.
On that night before the game, I did not sleep. Chris Burchell, he was my roommate. We did not sleep. We probably got 1 hour sleep. Maybe due to some anxiety. It could be due to anxiety, but also there was the time difference as well.
We arrived in Bahrain knowing that we weren't going to play badly 2 games in a row, knowing that even at our worst, we were equal to Bahrain. If we had a good performance there, we'd go through.
I remember we carried a steel band also with us to play the anthem. So they have it some local beat. And the Bahrain authority said they don't want the steel band, they don't want the anthem and so on. I said if you don't want the anthem, then no football. I mean, I was powerful in those days. No football. And then they relented and the anthem was played.
In the most important football game in this country's history, there would be 2 defining moments.
Decent delivery, the keeper came, didn't get there! And TNT, they've done it! They've scored the goal that could send them to the promised land.
Dennis Lawrence's header was easily the most important goal in our nation's history. Kelvin Jack made a save, which I to this day believe is the best save I have seen with my own 2 eyes.
Who's he going to drop to? It's a good strike! Oh, great save!
And Russell Latipi hit the crossbar. Dwight York was at arguably his best in that game. So much went right, and I knew that once those things did, that we'd win the game. And I still remember to this day the final whistle and being overcome with emotion. Chris Burchell, who had to come off with a bad ankle in that game, was sitting next to me. I put him on my back, and we ran onto the first 2 people I went to Dwight York and Russell Latipi. I played in an under 12 national team with both Dwight and Russell some 25 years earlier. So now to come to share that stage, to share that moment with 2 footballers who I've known for virtually my entire life, it was a lot. It was a lot emotionally, and the emotions. I say unashamedly got the better of me.
Only when we came into land to Trinidad and you look around and you can see all the people in Trinidad, and then all the messages and everything, and people started laying everything on myself, which I've never really took as me. I think it was always a team. I think that's when the goal became the massive thing you refer for myself. So it's one that would always be remembered by me and probably for Trinidad and Tobago as a whole. But I like to celebrate it in a way that it was a goal done by Trinidad and Tobago as a football team and not just me.
If anything could bring the country together, it's this victory. And just what I say, oh God, it might be once in a lifetime. I just happy that I'm alive to see this happen now.
For those who witnessed that historical game, November 16th, 2005 would forever be etched in their memories. The nation remained on a high in the months that followed, but the players had to refocus ahead of the World Cup in 2006. Trinidad and Tobago was drawn in Group B with Sweden, Paraguay and England. June 10th, 2006. The national footballers wake up in Deutschland to face Sweden in their World Cup opener. A number 1 goalkeeper, Kelvin Jack, isn't feeling well. He's picked up a calf injury and is in excruciating pain.
I was warming up as I can't even say as I normally do. Again, Kelvin was working with Michael Maurice, the goalkeeper coach. Clayton Mintz and I were either taking shots from the other players. At times I was kicking shots at Clayton and he was doing the same at me. And I was fairly relaxed. And then all of a sudden, Kelvin walked by me and said something. And I thought he said he couldn't make it, but I wasn't sure. He'd been carrying an injury, which he picked up in one of the warm-up games. So it was a little uncertain as to whether he'd start, whether he'd be able to play the full game. So there was always this little bit of uncertainty. And I heard him say something, and I thought he said that he wasn't able to play, but I wasn't 100% certain. And I just kind of stood there and stared at Leo Benhacker. And I saw Kelvin walk over to him. They have a short exchange, and Leo turned to me and asked if I was ready. And I said, yeah, I'm ready.
Shaka Hislop would have the game of his life.
Last little come for Wilhelmsen. It's a really good save by Shaka Hislop. Gray seated on by Ibrahimovic. Another good reaction stop from Hislop. Ibrahimovic is free. Edwards lost him. Caught up with him eventually. Here's Larson. And now all back and no flag. And somehow Hislop beats him out again. Ibrahimovic. Shaka Hislop. Hero.
Trinidad and Tobago would take a point out of the game that would feel like a win. For Sweden, it felt like a defeat.
They've done it! Trinidad and Tobago have held Sweden. A match to remember these opening stages by an unlikely encounter between two teams from contrasting cultures, with a hot favourite and a wild outsider, and nothing to separate them, thanks to the brilliance of Shaka Hislop and the sheer pride of the men in red.
2 decades later, you have never watched that replay of Trinidad and Tobago versus Sweden again.
No, it's my fairy tale. And my fear is that if I watch it again, all of a sudden it'll become real. Right now, I want to keep it as my fairy tale.
Trinidad and Tobago would lose to England and Paraguay, but the players had earned the adoration of a nation. When we come back, the gamble Jack Warner took on Leo Benhacker. March 2005. The senior men's national football team is off to a rocky start in its 2006 World Cup qualification quest under head coach Bertil St. Clair. After a first-round bye, Trinidad and Tobago dismantles the Dominican Republic 6-0 in the second round of CONCACAF World Cup qualifying to advance to the next round. The team is drawn in Group 3 of the third round along with Mexico, St. Vincent and the Grenadines, and St. Kitts and Nevis. They win 4 of the 6 games to qualify for the fourth and final round of World Cup qualifying. The Hex stage includes powerhouses United States, Mexico, Costa Rica, Panama, and Guatemala. The final round starts with a 2-1 defeat to the United States in February.
Johnson! Eddie Johnson with a header! And he has scored again in 4 straight games!
A month later, Guatemala trounces the national team 5-1. With 2 games gone and no points on the board, there's mounting pressure on coach Bertil St. Clair. The Trinidad and Tobago Football Federation is holding internal discussions considering his future. It hardly gets better for St. Clair at the end of March. He manages a draw against Costa Rica at home, but his fate has already been sealed. After the game, he is fired as head coach of the national team, and the Football Federation announces a Dutch manager, Leo Benhacker, will take the helm of the national team for the remaining 7 games. He's not yet a household name in this country, but Benhacker's reputation precedes him. He's coached Ajax, Real Madrid, the Netherlands, and Feyenoord. With Real Madrid, he's won 3 La Liga titles, a Copa del Rey, and 2 Spanish Cups. He takes over a Trinidad and Tobago football team sitting at the bottom of the hex with 1 point from 3 matches.
Whose decision was it, and when was the decision made that Leo Benhacker would be Trinidad and Tobago football manager?
Remember that we had Bertil Sinclair at first, and we weren't doing well at all. We had played 3 games and we had only 1 point. And I felt that Bertil didn't have enough football knowledge, so to speak, to carry us beyond the level of qualifying. And I spoke to a friend in FIFA, and he said to me, you want to qualify? I said, yes, we have to, because in FIFA, all the guys there, their countries had qualified except mine. So in some ways I felt, as if, of course, I lost something. I wasn't, of course, on the same playing field with them. They're talking about their coaches and their players and where they have come from and so on. I couldn't say a word. And here am I, FIFA vice president, and my country hasn't qualified. So I asked a friend in FIFA, he's dead now. I said, I need help. I need a coach that is inexpensive but good. I said, I want to make sure we could qualify. He said, let me tell you something. There's a coach in Poland who nobody knows, except the fact in your part of the world. And he has a lot of knowledge playing for Real Madrid and so on. Take him. He's not, of course, too expensive, but take him. I went to Poland, spoke to Leo, and the rest is history.
The decision to remove St. Clair couldn't have been an easy one. He had served domestic football for decades, developing players like Dwight York.
When he came here, and I asked him to ask Bertil to work with him, Bertil refused.
The decision would have immediate results. Trinidad and Tobago beat Panama in August, keeping its hopes alive.
Well, I think Benhacker put his foot down from day one when he came in and said, no hats, no phone, and everybody is to be at the table. Before, some coaches would have leaned a bit and allow this player and allow certain things, but Benhacker was very stern on discipline and structure. So he wasn't allowing the great players to stay in a different hotel or to eat when they feel to eat and wear hats and have mobile phones to take away the team spirit. So I think small things like that is what made him a better manager than most of the managers we had.
After back-to-back defeats to Mexico and the United States, Benhacker's men bounced back, winning a thriller against Guatemala 3-2.
Leo understood that he had all the experience in the world, but he had never experienced a culture like ours before. And what Leo did really, really well was understood that he was never going to be able to change an entire culture, but he just had to make the adjustments needed to get to the level that we needed to get to. Leo embraced himself in every single thing that we did. He became part of it. He was a really, really honest man. He was a disciplinarian, but he was a joyful man. And he was somebody that would have fun with the group. We would all enjoy his company.
I think he recognized the type of players we have, the country we live in, and I think what he's done really well was to motivate and get the players to play, but then identify where their strengths are. And that is what made the team really flourish under his watch, because he knew every player, he knew the culture, he knew everything. He learned about everything, and he just managed the team in the way that we played and performed into the World Cup.
Coming from Europe, Benhacker had arrived on a small island where it lacked structure and a professional culture. Dennis Lawrence says it was his biggest contribution.
He's somebody that I really did look up to as a human being, because he led the way, and he led the way in many, many ways that you couldn't talk about it highly enough. But I think the biggest thing that he did was understood that he needed to make the adjustment to fall into what our culture was about. He understood the needs of each and every player, and he always tried to make decisions based on what was right for the group, what was right for the team, and he did it in that way. You can't speak highly of him. We've had coaches before who's probably come in and didn't manage to accomplish what he accomplished, because I think probably they tried to change too much. Leo just changed enough to be able to get it done, and what a man.
After losing to Costa Rica, Trinidad and Tobago went on to beat Panama and Mexico in a dramatic finale to finish 4th in the Hex. It earned the nation a spot in the playoffs against Bahrain. Leo Benhacker had turned the national team around, winning 4 out of the 7 games he was in charge of.
The findings of the gems to give him that team would have been the earlier coaches, as Bertil Sinclair, because I think he did the groundwork. Benhacker now at the management area know how to manage the team, knowing that Dwight is one of our top players, and to get him to coincide with the players that haven't reached the peak that he have reached. We had Russell Latip, we have the experience, we have Shaka, and then we had the prolific Stern John and other players. So to get us together to work, I think Benhacker really did a great job.
In 2 of this country's most important football matches in its history, Benhacker's men would rise to the occasion, and his name would be etched into Trinidad and Tobago football folklore.
Ryan, cast your mind back. Suppose having brought Leo here, we didn't qualify. You know the kind of pains I would have gone through, the kind of abuse and so on. So it was a gamble. In fact, I think it was the biggest gamble of my life to bring him here. And the rest is history.
Benhacker was awarded the Shakonia Medal Gold Class, the 2nd highest honor of this country. But he wouldn't stay with the national team. Instead, he was sought after by the Polish national team. We would never know what Trinidad and Tobago football would have become had Leo Benhacker stayed. If Leo Benhacker had stayed on as Trinidad and Tobago head coach, would our fortunes have been different post-2006?
I think so. I think it would have been different, but having qualified for the World Cup, other countries began to make demands of him, on him, much more than we could have made. And therefore he decided that he can't stay. He left his assistant here. That didn't work out, but he went back to coach the Polish national team for the first time. And that only happened because of what he did in Trinidad and Tobago. But had he stayed here, I think we would have done better, much better than we did then.
How much different do you think our football would have been post-2006 had Leo Benhacker stayed on?
I think it would have been a big difference, because you'd have put management into a specific area where they have to perform to have the players perform. He was very adamant on his performance. Sometimes he gets vexed with the association if they don't have it specifically for the players to perform. He was very, he was very strong-minded on what he wants, and what he wants is what he wants, and he wasn't stepping down from it. So I believe, if he had been around in the administrative part to make sure things went, we would have been in our next World Cup.
In the 2010 CONCACAF World Cup qualifiers, Trinidad and Tobago made it to the final round of qualifying, but finished in the basement of the table with 6 points from 10 matches. Benhacker would be recalled by the TNT Football Association in 2013 to help head coach Stephen Hart assess what was going wrong in the local game. He explained his role in this Fox Soccer interview.
What I understood is that the last few years the football there went down a little bit, so they just asked me to come over for a certain period. I don't know, 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, I don't know yet, to analyze a little bit what the problem is, and to see if I can support in any way to make possibly a better structure and a better development in the football there.
Football in this country would never be the same with Benhacker's departure, and its national teams have never been able to replicate such success like 2005. In the 2014 campaign, Trinidad and Tobago failed to advance past the 2nd round. In the 2018 qualifiers, the team finished last in the Hex. And in 2022, the national team was nicked by St. Kitts and Nevis. He left a void that was never quite filled. Leo Benhacker died on April 10, 2025. But his legacy and himself have been immortalized in Trinidad and Tobago football. But he wasn't the only one that left a void. Coming up after the break, from Leo Benhacker to Jack Warner.
What went wrong after the 2006 World Cup?
After the 2006 World Cup, this tiny twin island was now the subject of global attention, particularly to see how football would develop in this country. A month after the FIFA World Cup ended, Trinidad and Tobago played a friendly international against Japan and lost the match 2-0. But apart from the friendlies, the first real test for this World Cup team would be the 2007 Gold Cup in the United States. In January that year, the national team was runners-up in the Caribbean Cup, losing the final to Haiti, but gaining automatic entry into the Gold Cup. This was a real measuring stick. Silvio Span would always be remembered for this epic goal he scored against El Salvador. It turned out to be the highlight in an otherwise dismal tournament for Trinidad and Tobago. There were defeats to El Salvador, the United States, and a 1-1 draw with Guatemala that earned the nation only 1 point in Group B. 1 year after gracing the biggest stage in football, Trinidad and Tobago had finished at the bottom of its Gold Cup group. It begged the question,
what went wrong after the 2006 World Cup?
Look, I think everybody would have their own opinion on what they think went wrong. In my opinion, I think probably a bit of hunger, and I think probably finances became the number one focus for everyone involved in Trinidad and Tobago football. And the focus went about trying to reflect on what was the things that we did to get there. And the focus went around a lot of things away from the football field. And everyone in their own right was entitled to fight what they fight for. But I think the focus went away from trying to build on the platform that was already laid, and football became secondary.
What did not happen after the 2006 World Cup?
Well, I could tell you all kinds of things. For once, I think that the players, remember when they came back, they got houses and a lot of money and so on. The players we had then were not, of course, as committed as they should have been. And as such, therefore, they allow our success in Germany to go to their heads, and they just did not play it. Another point also too they had also too was an ongoing argument with me for money from FIFA, for funds and so on. They said I promised them X and Y and Z, which I never did really. And this was a sore point, and some of them, of course, went on strike, they refused to play. That too affected the football.
What were your expectations for Trinidad and Tobago football after the FIFA World Cup in 2006?
Well, I hoped we would be able to build on the momentum. I hope we'd be able to so many of our institutions, so much of our infrastructure, I hoped would benefit as a result.
Kelvin Jack says after the 2006 World Cup, money was not the issue in Trinidad and Tobago football. In fact, there was a lot of it.
It does anger me. I'll be honest, because the money was there. We could have easily, put programs in place, really get coaches in place to really develop a philosophy, for the country and the way we want to play, the type of player we want to develop. And we allow that opportunity to pass us by. So, we are in a worse state now, in terms of lack of talent.
It's a point Shaka Hislop also made. He feels the ingredients were there domestically to build on.
We had an albeit young professional league, but one that we could build on. It was arguably I'll be honest, I'm not even so sure it was arguably. We had the best professional league in the Caribbean. And I hope that we could continue to build on that, to give young talents in Trinidad and Tobago something to, one, aspire to, and also provide a stepping stone to leagues, to bigger and better leagues elsewhere, be it in the US, be it in Europe. I felt there was so much that we could have done in terms of building out our game holistically, from grassroots to building bridges and establishing relationships with professional leagues all over the world.
Clayton Ince says no one took the time to study how the country was able to qualify for the 2006 World Cup, so it couldn't guide the future.
Well, I think after the World Cup, I think we having to go back and see what brought us there. We didn't really ready for it. We normally, for many teams that Trinidad has done, after the qualifiers or you have made the tournament, everything just go flat. And we shouldn't have allowed it to. We should have still worked on what got us there and see if we can continue that process, but everything just went flat.
Nothing grew in terms of the football. The league started to go down. The competitiveness, trying to build on the foundation that was laid, it just became secondary, and other things became the main focus. And I think today, when you look at Trinidad and Tobago football, we're probably paying the price for it now.
Looking back now at 20 years, I not only have we failed, we've regressed. And that for me is the most disappointing aspect of where we find our football today.
On the field, the team was struggling, and several key players from that 2006 World Cup team began retiring from the game. But off the field, the players feel the administration had also regressed.
I think, we fall at the administrative side because I think that they didn't put anything in concession planning to go forward, looking at where we build on what we took us there and the things that we missed to see if we could fully voice, and I don't think they did it any justice to right now the players at this era now.
The challenges got only worse when in 2011, Jack Warner was provisionally suspended from FIFA amid corruption allegations. Warner, though a controversial figure in world football, would be deeply missed in Trinidad and Tobago football.
We had Jack Warner, who of course was a special advisor to the Trinidad and Tobago Football Federation as it was then. It's now back to the Trinidad and Tobago Football Association. But everything in our football went through Jack Warner. Every decision went through Jack Warner. What that did was once he was no longer involved in Trinidad and Tobago and world football, we had this void of institutional knowledge. We did not have people who were experienced or could share their experiences as to what it took to build a campaign in the way that we did in 2006.
From corporate need to better international friendlies, Warner had left a hole new administrators of the game were struggling to fill.
So all of a sudden we found ourselves starting from scratch yet again. And that for me, I think was the most hurtful aspect of coming out of 2006, where we found ourselves.
There were so many critics when he was in charge, and then when he left, I stood back and I looked at it and I observed, and I'm like, well, no one is willing to take up the mantle. They're all critical, they all have the answers, but no one was willing to step forward and say, okay, Mr. Warner did this wrong, he did that wrong, and no one was able to step in and essentially help and be influential and inspire.
However, the former TNT goalkeeper says Jack Warner did one thing wrong.
Having had that experience, having had that influence, that he would realize the importance of us having a real structure in place, from the money that was generated from our World Cup campaign, and we didn't get that from Mr. Warner.
I posed that question to Mr. Warner.
I can't deny that. I can't deny that. I think I am guilty for not having a good successor plan. So therefore, of course, I didn't have anybody to succeed or take over for me in the TTFA. TTFA football was Jack Warner, and Jack Warner was TTFA football. We almost synonymous. When you talk about football then, talking to Jack Warner. There was no Jack Warner after that. I went more into FIFA, more into CONCACAF, and because of that, the void was created, but the bubble even get worse as years went by. After 2011, 2010, when I left the football, that was when the actual void really began to hurt. And who knows, possibly up to today, it is still hurting.
Do you feel that future presidents, and I'm not calling any names, but future presidents of the TTFF tried to be the next Jack Warner?
Yes, they did. And I say it in all humility. They don't understand that you only have one Jack Warner, not two, not three. And therefore they had to instill in themselves a new brand, a new style, as it were. You can't replicate Jack Warner in football, but you could develop something on your own. And that is what they have not done.
There have continued to be question marks over the administration of Trinidad and Tobago football. From a FIFA president visit to a normalization committee. When we come back, we'll explore where we go from here. Since the 2006 World Cup, many people have tried to diagnose the problems in Trinidad and Tobago football. An autopsy on the local game has been performed on the field, in the boardroom, even at the governmental level to see where things are going wrong and who bears responsibility. Dennis Lawrence saw the challenges as a player, then faced them head-on as a coach.
During the period that I was there, the financial stranglehold around every single thing that we had to do, I didn't think it was beneficial at all to be able to try and push forward. I also don't think that the fact that the league couldn't find a solid footing to be able to run throughout the period and be a professional football league, I think that was not helping in any way or form or fashion.
The former fullback says it may be time to focus on getting the local structure right, rather than qualifying for a World Cup.
You can't have your professional footballers by name, but by action, nothing's professional. And I think that doesn't help. So I think we need to really, really focus on laying down the foundation of organizing our football structure, our development pathways, our leagues in Trinidad. And then we can then start focusing on trying to qualify for World Cups. But if we continue to keep making the World Cup be the main priority, it's like trying to build the house from the top come down. I think it becomes really, really difficult.
Is chasing a World Cup qualification doing more harm to our football than restructuring and building from the bottom up, as you are talking about, that would do us better?
I don't think it has to be either or, Ryan. You know, we can walk and chew gum at the same time here. We have to give players and our fans something to dream about, something to be excited about. And that's a World Cup. That's qualifying for a World Cup. But at the same time, we have to be realistic in how we deliver that World Cup, how we deliver something for players and fans to be excited about.
As players began to retire in the years that followed the World Cup, they moved away from this country.
We're disappointed that the majority of Trinidad and Tobago footballers who, like yourself, qualified for that World Cup, split in different directions in different countries and, you know, weren't really able to contribute in a meaningful way to the development of the game post-2006.
I think that is one of our downfalls generally in sports. When we have people go out there and represent at the highest level, through these sporting ministries, they don't use them in the proper way to give back and to have them carry on.
Hislop often uses the words holistic development, and he wants to see that in Trinidad and Tobago football.
I'm a firm believer in our football administration leading that charge, and so often the onus on the development, on the growth is placed on 11 players walking onto a football field. I see it completely differently. I feel that's putting the cart before the horse. Administratively, we've got to do a better job in terms of growing the game. From a grassroots level, in terms of talent identification. I'm not just talking about in Port of Spain or the West, but are we really looking at talent and growing and developing talent in Tobago, in Guaguiari, in Mayaro, in every single corner of Trinidad and Tobago? Are we providing opportunities for those kids to not just to play the game and first and foremost enjoy the game? Are we then equipping coaches who can identify talent and who can develop talent that may one day represent Trinidad and Tobago?
I used to go as far as Toko, Mayaro, to look for players. They play in a league in Mayaro. The league is not affiliated to the TNTFA, but here am I looking on to see if I see a player. Right? Same thing in Toko, same thing in Tobago. Because in the country areas, I realize, and I say this in all, had to be careful, but I realized the guys were strong, they were drug-free, and so on. And if they get the proper coaching, you could help them. You will not know, but I used to Dwight York, when I saw him, I took him from Tobago. He lived in my house for 2 years. I took him to St. Augustine Community School, Sedona, to go to school. I sent him to school because I saw in that guy a future for football. The same thing for a player called Colin Hutchinson. So you have to go out. You can't stay in Port of Spain or San Fernando and believe that, of course, the players will come to you. No, you have to go to them. You have to go down to Point. Point Forte is the cradle of football in the country. Go to Point and look for players. You may get one, you may get two, you may get none. But you have to keep searching until you get the correct mix, the correct blend. And that's what I did.
In March 2020, a letter from FIFA sent shockwaves across domestic football. A normalization committee had been appointed to run the affairs of Trinidad and Tobago football. To this day, it is a topic of division among past players and officials.
It affects football where that we will control how to play and when to play, but then again it controls us on our way of just doing anything and anywhere and anyhow. So the normalization committee kind of stigmatize and hold us to be accountable for what we're doing, but yet they monitor how we do it.
At the end of the day, nothing was fundamentally wrong with the TNTFA constitution. Nothing was wrong also in Wallace being elected president of the TTFA. He was in the secondary school football league, and the FIFA moved him.
But it was in huge, huge sums of debt.
Yes, sure. And who says that today much has changed? Today, much hasn't changed today. They are still in debt. But where's the football? And you have to understand that there will always be debt because you have to play strong countries. You have to travel. You have to go overseas. You have to have under 13, under 15, under 17, under 20. These things cost money. To develop them, people look only at the end result when you qualify for a World Cup. But before you reach there are a lot of things you have to do and build and create. And those things cost money, Ryan. And people don't understand that. They want to put the money at the end. When you qualify, give you tons of money, but no, put it at the beginning.
The grassroots. That's where Clayton Ince would like to see the focus be placed.
I think we have to look at those programs into the primary school, where that we have a primary school league which keeps on a bit more, and then from there you have the secondary school league, which they just from primary school into secondary before we go into any other youth football. I believe in our time we had the Sunshine Snacks League. From after the Sunshine Snacks League, we had the primary school league. From the primary school league, they had the secondary school league. So we are constantly playing. Now we have lighted recreation grounds and less football. Because players are not being able to play football as freely to grow.
As popular as the secondary school's football league is, Kelvin Jack says he has never been a fan of it, as it places too much emphasis on winning.
When the emphasis is on winning, there isn't any kind of importance towards development. And sometimes I really can't get it. I cannot understand the excitement of it all with winning a youth tournament. But you still have players who technically are short, who tactically are short, where their football IQ is quite poor. But there is this false narrative that, many of these players who are playing there, that they're top players. They can be top players. They have the potential to be top players if they're developed in the right way.
Jack says if we're going to fix local football, a large part of that will be with the SSFL.
If we're going to keep that model, the secondary schools model where, that's the main youth football leagues, we have to have coaches that are able to develop players. That's the first thing I would do. I would have national teams. We need to play more. We need to play more games. And this is from under 15s all the way up to the senior team. You need to come out to South America. You need to come to Europe. Go to Asia, play games, learn from these games.
I've spent this year exploring the rise and demise of Trinidad and Tobago football. So many of the interviews on this program were done before the final round of World Cup qualifiers.
This particular stint this year is the easiest spot they'll ever have. And if we don't qualify in this particular stint, then something is wrong.
Are you saying that solely based that 48 teams will qualify for the World Cup?
That is correct. And we were drawn into a very fortunate group with Curacao, Bermuda, Trinidad and Tobago. I mean, that for me says a lot, because if you can't beat those countries, then it shouldn't be in a World Cup.
If we qualify, it's not by design. It's certainly not by design. It will be by God's grace. that is what it would be. Of course, listen, there'll be some hard work going into it, and Dwight and Russell and Derek and the rest of the staff, they're trying to find ways in which we could navigate qualification with it and in us qualifying. But let's not kid ourselves. Let's be brutally honest here. We are miles behind a lot of these teams, and I mean miles behind. Do not be fooled with an one-off result. You need to look at the bigger picture. And unless we get a structure in place, we will be having the same issues for the next 50 years.
For these World Cup heroes, it's more than just the skill and talent. The footballers playing SSFL football now were not born as yet when they qualified for the 2006 World Cup.
There are so many of the younger ones who knows nothing about what happened in 2005, who doesn't even know Trinidad and Tobago took part in a World Cup. And that's our fault. We choose to let it die out, and we haven't glorified it in the way that it should be glorified. It's something that is historic, and it should be prominent. I've traveled around in many countries. And these countries and them, as soon as you land in the airport, you know that country's won a World Cup, or they've won the European Cup, or they've won something in cricket, because it's there in front of your face. And I think we don't focus on these things enough. We just take it for granted that it would be remembered. It wouldn't be remembered if it's not thought, if it's not given as an educational thing to the younger generation.
For those alive, it's a day difficult to forget as the country came together for one common mission, supporting a team battling on its behalf. Now the search continues for the next team to take Trinidad and Tobago to a World Cup.
You don't have instant football, Ryan, until we get that into our heads that you have to build, groom, grow. We will not achieve success.